On this episode of Big Sky Now, we recap Week 6, where we saw 4 Big Sky teams play last Saturday. We also discuss some NFL and some previous Big Sky players. And then we also are going to talk about Week 7, where we see 5 Big Sky games and a couple key matchups coming up this Saturday. I just wanted to shout out M&C Tires for sponsoring this video. Let's not waste any time and get right to it. Welcome in, everyone. I am Luke Schmit, your host of the Big Sky Now podcast. Today, I am joined with my panel. First, I have Fritz Neighbor from the Daily Interlake, along with John Allen, also Daily Interlake sports reporter. I also want to welcome in Columbia Basin Herald sports reporter Mike Maynard. And last but not least, we have Coeur d'Alene press editor Mark Nelke. Before we jump into some Week 6 talk, guys, just want to give a little NFL recap. I'll jump in real quick and get over it. It's Eagles legend Cooper Kupp. Want to bring him up every week while he's still in the league. And Bobcats Ty Okada made their mark for the Seahawks. In the Seahawks loss, Cooper Kupp had 6 catches for 59 yards, and Okada had 7 tackles, And I just want to give a little shout out to Fritz and I's Broncos for stealing a game at Philly. Bobcats' own Alex Singleton had 5 tackles in their victory, and it was actually against his former team. So someone called that a revenge game. And Weber alumni Rashid Shaheed continues to make plays every Sunday for the Saints. This week he had 114 yards on 4 catches, and one of the catches was an 87-yard touchdown. So definitely want to give a shout out to Shaheed for his stellar performance. And finally, a couple guys that had about 8 tackles each. Aggies' Teddy Buchanan had 8 tackles versus the Texans. He's currently on the Ravens. And Idaho's Christian Ellis also had 8 tackles in their upset win over the Bills on Sunday night. But we're here to talk Big Sky football, so let's jump right into our Week 6 recap. I'm really excited to discuss all 4 games here with the panel. John, I want to start with you. Let's start with your Northern Arizona pick from last week. I know you were confident in the Lumberjacks, so I kind of just wanted to hear your thoughts and a couple players to shout out before you start. Taco Dowler was named Special Teams Player of the Week, had a 90-yard touchdown return, and Kenneth Eden IV was named the Defensive Player of the Week with 2.5 tackles for loss and a half sack. So just wanted to list that, but John, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I was confident going into that game, and I was confident in the Lumberjacks after a quarter, and then Taco Dowler took back a kick 90 yards, and Jabez Woods went 79 yards on a reception, and it felt like all was lost in that moment. And so the Lumberjacks started out actually pretty strong. You know, they took the 7-0 lead after one. It felt like they were actually kind of controlling the trenches early on against Montana State, and then everything just went to heck when when all that momentum left. I was a bit disappointed as well. One of the things I was trying to talk about last week was NAU fans kind of getting out there and making that place a tough place to play, and it was not full, not even close. I saw some photos from inside. It was a pretty disappointing show up, and I know Montana State always travels well no matter where the Bobcats are playing, so it was probably even more lopsided in terms of fans than it could have been, even in that regard. So I'm disappointed in how Northern Arizona came out. It was definitely an opportunity for them to prove that they are a contender in this league, and once again they fell short.
And before I jump over to Fritz here to talk about the Montana game, because that one was very exciting as well for Montana fans. Pennington, 28 for 47, only had 210 yards. John, I just wanted, maybe you had a couple notes on Pennington and how he played. I know you were pretty hopeful in his performance through the season.
Yeah, I mean, it's Montana State's defense. They're going to find ways to shut you down. They're going to find your strengths, and they're going to game plan for it. And that's what they did. You know, they made it difficult for Pennington to find open receivers. And then on the offensive side, Justin Lamson's really showing out to become an all Big Sky level quarterback this season.
Yep, Lamson is. Each week, I think we've slowly seen him grow more comfortable in that offense. Had 213 yards, 2 touchdowns. And overall, the Cats ran for 196 yards. So I was impressed, especially with the way the game started. I think they were on the 1-yard line and took the ball 99 yards to score, I believe, when they were down 7-0. So impressive win for the Cats. Let's jump over to Missoula. Well, the game wasn't in Missoula, it was in Pocatello, Idaho, and it was quite a game. I'll leave Fritz to give all the details because I know he's excited to talk about this one.
Yeah, beautiful Pocatello. Yeah, and it was a pretty good crowd inside the ICCU dome, or whatever they want to call what we used to call the mini dome. I didn't know if it was going to happen. I was watching it on the radio because both my guys that I work with know how to run the TV in the Interlake, and I don't. So I watched on the radio, and I kind of thought when it was a 2-score game there in the third quarter that the Griz are going to have a hard time pulling it off, but they did. I thought it was interesting that Idaho State had pretty much same amount of yardage both halves, but while they scored on 5 of their first 6 drives, they only scored on 1 of their last 7 drives, and that one score was set up by an interception and pretty good return, which set them up on a short field, 33-yard field, and so they were able to get in there and get it up by get the score up to a 2-score game. And I thought there's some things that really stuck out for me. One of them is that Michael Shulikov and Sion Nunley are going to be a handful for MSU this week. Jordan Cook was really good on the run, rolling outside the pocket and putting a lot of gas on that football. He was throwing 50 yards without really being set up to throw that far. He just has a cannon. I thought toward the end, the Griz never sacked him, but they did put some pressure on him. Toward the end, they seemed to keep the pressure in lanes and keep him bottled up in the pocket. He didn't seem nearly as comfortable throwing from behind center as he was getting outside the tackle box and just kind of flinging it upfield and finding some good receivers. Diesel Washington has come up a couple times this year. He's the Idaho transfer that came to the Griz. Griz made that trip without Keon Loud, and Washington had 7 tackles, so that was kind of a good deal. And then, we come back to Wortham. I thought Idaho State did a really good job pinning their ears back and trying to stop the run game led by Eli Gilman. But that opened up other stuff for the Griz offense, namely some short passing games. And then Wortham was just a beast. He completed 2 passes for 49 yards. I thought it was kind of cool that Ayad had about 11 yards of yak after Wortham ended with that pass and ahead of the go-ahead touchdown. A lot of highlights. 42-38 kind of reminded me of the old mid-'80s Big Sky Conference where everybody's throwing the ball around. The run game's kind of used to keep people honest. There was a ton of yards, over 1,000 all put together, and a great game, and another one where the Griz just kind of found a way, which good teams do.
Yeah, Fritz, it really was a great game, and Montana was able to rally. But you have to shout out the Bengals holding Gilman to 48 yards, his lowest of the season. Mark, I'm going to bounce it over to you. Bengals almost pulled this one out. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I figured it would be a close game, or maybe hoped it would be a close game, especially, Pocatello. And it was, and, ISU was up 38-28 and couldn't finish the game. I think that was partially, one team, Montana, knowing how to finish out close games, and maybe ISU still learning. I mean, they've been down for so long, and now they're better, but that's still something they got to learn. They got to the Griz 20 at the end with a chance to win it, and through 4 straight incompletions. I was looking through the play-by-play. I didn't get to see all of it, but I noticed, they were up 38-28, and then Montana scores in 5 plays. Then ISU drives to the Montana 33 as a 4th and 1 and goes for it instead of kicking a field goal with their perfect place kicker. And I kind of wondered about that. I didn't see the game. I see that part of the game. Maybe Fritz can expand on that, why they didn't do that, because those 3 points would have come in handy a little bit later. And then, they gave it up, and then there was an exchange of punts, and then Montana scored, and then ISU drove it down and didn't, and they needed a touchdown instead of a field goal, which turned out to be pretty big. But ISU, like Fritz said, they're a load. Cook can, that was the first I'd seen a whole lot of Jordan Cook play, and he can sling it. He can sling it overhands, 3/4, sidearm, whatever. He he can chuck it. And Shulikov's a great receiver, and Nunnally, the WSU transfer, is a great receiver. So they got guys that can catch it, and the running back's good. He didn't do a whole lot in that game, but he has in the past. And one thing that I noticed about Montana is they had a couple, Wortham and a number 3. Sometimes they get those guys in space, and they were just so much quicker than the ISU guys. They just got them one-on-one, and and then there's one around them and scored. It was like, geez, it was just noticeably different how much quicker they were than the defenders were. But other than that, I thought, it kind of played out kind of how I thought it would, and hopefully, ISU kind of learns from that toward the end, when they have games like that in the future.
I wanted to add something. I really like that big D tackle that was in the Marines. The TV crew kept saying he was an ex-Marine. There's no such thing. Once a Marine, always a Marine. Just like I say, once a Griz, once a Bobcat, always a Griz, always a Bobcat. So, there he is. And
sorry.
Welcome aboard.
Is that a Bobcat?
That one looks bigger than the Beamer. But yeah, I want to just mention that Idaho State had a pretty good stout defense up front anyway, and then a little bit of maybe of a speed deficit in the back end.
No, definitely, you guys hit it on the head, and like you're saying, Wortham and Davis combined for 120 or 228 yards. So yeah, like I was saying before, I think I was impressed with both teams, but more Idaho State. They were able to knock on the door first with Shulikov and Jordan Cook, 421 yards. So overall, I was very impressed with the Bengals, and watching that game, I thought they were going to pull that one out. But Montana's young team continues to find a way to win, and we'll see if it continues the rest of the season. Let's jump over to Mike. Mike, you went and covered the Eastern Washington game. It was your first college game that you've covered. So walk me through the experience. What did you enjoy? How did it feel to be on the sidelines? And talk to me about the win.
Yeah, like I was telling you a little bit earlier, that field is as red could probably get. But great atmosphere. I think Eastern Washington fans really bring some passion and a lot of energy. Maybe it being their homecoming game helped a little bit with that. But yeah, it was a pretty competitive game, start to finish. Portland State just would not go away no matter what. I think if I recall that first half, the Eagles scored on their first drive, and I think got up, I want to say 14-7, and looking like they were getting ready to go into the halftime with a nice lead. And then next thing you know, it's 21-17, and all of a sudden it's a close game, and it's going to remain pretty competitive. The defense, their secondary, gave up some big plays throughout the first half and would a couple more times throughout that second half. But with the Eagles' run game was so strong, it almost didn't matter. I think over 330 yards total rushing and only like 90-something yards for passing. Nate Bell is really good on his feet and has a pretty good instinct of when to pull the ball down and just make a run for it, and made Portland State pay quite a few times. But then, speaking of that defense again, they were kind of clutch in some of the biggest moments of the game. I think one time they were down at the Eastern Washington 10-yard line ready to score and went 4 and out, turnover on downs. Eagles came up big on that one. And then to seal the game, Jalen Jenkins made a huge interception to kind of win it when the Vikings were trying to go down and score and potentially tie the game. So really good game overall. I know the coach Aaron Best was feeling pretty good afterwards about just how they fought to the end, and they said their best week of practice led up to this game, and it looks like that kind of played out for them as well. But some things that they hope to work on going into their bye week is maybe tightening up that O-line and making sure that Nate Bell can be more comfortable in the pocket and not have to pull down and run so often. But good game overall for them. They made that run game work very well.
Great to hear, Mike. Really glad you're able to go cover it, and hopefully we can get you there on the sidelines again, because it's definitely important for us to get on the sidelines whenever Fritz, me, John, you, any of us can do that. We can see the game in a different way live. So that's special, and thank you for that. John, let's just go really quick on the last game. UC Davis escaped another win, but Pennick continues to impress. He's going to be co-offensive player of the week with 4 touchdowns, 21 for 26 passing, and 373 yards offense. Let's hear your opinion on that, and we'll go to week 7.
Yeah, well, that game kind of felt like what we talked about last week with Cal Poly bringing in momentum from taking down Sacramento State, how they could use it, and they came out strong, scored a touchdown with a nice long drive on their first possession, and they hung in there for most of the game. It was 20-20 game going into the fourth quarter. UC Davis took the lead there and added a second, finally went up by 2 scores there midway through the quarter, and Cal Poly tried to get back into it, but UC Davis ran out the clock. So in all, I think Pinnick's playing incredible for a freshman. He's starting to kind of put his name out there, potentially on the Jerry Rice Award watch list, which maybe UC Davis fans don't want to hear based on the track records of recent Jerry Rice Award winners. 4 of the last 5 have transferred up to the FBS level, including Cam Ward and Shadur Sanders. So the only one that's still with their team is actually Eli Gilman with Montana from 2023. So maybe they don't want to hear that, but he's definitely got to be putting his name out there. And if you keep playing like this, they're going to be a team to watch come the end of the season.
Absolutely, John. I think there's some schools already looking at Pinnick and seeing what they can do in this offseason to get him, because he continues to impress each week. Let's transition this game over to week 7 because next week, Bo Kelly is going to be going to Missoula. So let's go back to Fritz here, then we'll talk about the Idaho State, Montana State game. But Fritz, the Big Sky is labeling this matchup the game of the week. So what interests you? The floor is yours.
Well, I think I just got done watching the UC Davis Cal Poly game, and I'm mostly impressed with Cal Poly. I think it's going to be notable that UC Davis' best player didn't play, Rex Connors, and I don't know if he's going to get to play the rest of the year.
He's done.
He's done. He's been a great safety, and I don't know if you guys knew this, but he got hurt running on a short yardage goal line play the week before, injured his knee. So, you wonder how much success Cal Poly would have had with Rex Connors across the line of scrimmage. That said, credit to Bo Kelly. He was a starter last year. He was buried on the depth chart in fall camp. He is their 4th guy to throw a bunch of passes this year, and he's apparently worked his way back into the starting nod. The TV crew was talking about if they were maybe going to see Diffenbach the second half against UC Davis, but they stuck with Kelly. And, the Griz last week had to deal with Shulikov, who's 6'6". Cal Poly has a guy who's 6'7". And so Alec Marshall was his name. And then they got Briscoe, who I didn't think played particularly well against UC Davis, but he's got 7 touchdowns. They've got Salahay, they got Garrison, and Kelly's pretty good. I do wonder if Tyree Washington, who didn't play last week because he was hurt the week before, apparently, I wonder if he's going to suit up. I think he's their most explosive running back. And, like I mentioned the week before, Paul Wolf is the head coach. He's used to these Big Sky battles. Cal Poly's about 5 years removed from the flexbone offense that they used to run. They're running more of a spread offense, and it's taken a while to get the players in there, to get the O-line in place and get the guys on the outside to run under passes, run under some throws. So they're getting there. I don't think they're quite there. I'm sorry about Rex Connors not playing anymore for Davis, and I expect the Griz will win. But I think we'll see we have seen already, and we'll continue to see a much improved Cal Poly squad.
Definitely, Fritz. I'm intrigued on this one as well. Let's go down to the Idaho State, Montana State game, and let's talk to Mark here. Mark, could you see the Bengals making this game as close as they did with Montana this week?
Unlikely. They're a little, it'd be nice. They're a little different animal on the road. They did throw for 421 against Montana, which is, should get Montana State's attention. Like Fritz mentioned, though, that, they weren't as productive the second half as they were the first half. And a lot of that might've had to do with that Montana linebacker that missed the first half of last week's game because of the targeting or apparent targeting. Yeah. And it might, or just a coincidence, or is it adjustment? But anyway, the passing yard, being able to pass it will give them a chance. But I think Montana State has a really good defense. Plus, they're playing at home, and so unless they have any reason that they look by these guys, then they should be able to handle them, fairly comfortably.
And you like you just said, it's in Bozeman. So maybe if it was flipped and there was another home game for Idaho State, I could see this one maybe being closer. But Bozeman's just as hard as a place to play lately in the last couple of years. So yeah, I think you definitely nailed that one on the head as well. Let's go to John. Let's talk about his Lumberjacks. Bounce back game for them. Huge opportunity for them to maybe beat UC Davis this week. John, do you still have confidence in the Lumberjacks to maybe take out the Aggies?
Definitely not as much as I had at the before the season started. Yeah, I do still have some confidence, and I do think they're a playoff team. They've gone out and gotten some big wins early on this season. They maybe haven't played like a top level Big Sky team, but they're definitely not in the middle of the pack. I feel they're kind of bridging that gap at the moment. They definitely need a rebound game here, regardless of what the result ends up being against Davis. It's going to be difficult to go on the road and battle a team, even if they are missing Rex Connors, who, as I mentioned, he is done for the season. Sacramento Bee reported that he tore a ligament in his knee, so he will not be returning to the Aggies this season. But yeah, I just don't see the Aggies offense being slowed down by a Northern Arizona team that's given up some points quite a bit this season. That offense has been solid, and if NAU can get their offense rolling against a defense without an all Big Sky level player in Connors, they might have a shot. But I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, I'm with you, John. There, like kind of the same scenario as last game. I think the fact it benefits really well for the home team, UC Davis, in this one. Mike, Eastern does have a bye this week, so I just want to ask you about maybe the Sacramento State versus Weber game. Both teams definitely looking for their first win in the Big Sky. If you had any notes there or anything you wanted to touch on.
Yeah, I did a little studying earlier today. Just looked at sort of what their seasons have looked like, somewhat similar, but I feel like Sacramento State, especially they just made a switch at quarterback. It looks like have looked a little stronger in their wins and in their losses. So I kind of lean more towards Sacramento State to kind of pull out a win against Weber State, even on the road. The quarterback can clean up some of those turnovers that he had last game. I think 3 interceptions, might be able to eke one out. If Weber State looks like their passing is a little more unreliable, I think 6 touchdowns to 9 interceptions on the season. I never like to see a ratio like that in terms of a leader of your pass game, but their run game has had flashes of brilliance. If they can lean on that, and if their defense can get some big stops, it might be more of a competitive game. But I don't particularly see it going that way. I feel like Sacramento State might really pull off an impressive win this weekend.
Hitting on what you said, Davion Godley for Weber State, 361 yards so far, 3 touchdowns, averaging 4.9 yards a carry. I think if they can get him going, I think I could see Weber, potentially pulling this one out with a ground game and controlling the clock. But if they're unable to do that, then I do see Sacramento State as well, like you said, getting another their first win in the conference. Last game, before we make our picks, Mark, Northern Colorado, coming off a bye, so they're rested and they're going to have a good game plan taking on Idaho. What are you thinking about this game?
I think it should be fairly close. I think the one thing I've noticed just watching the games so far in conference is the gap between the haves and the have-nots it's a little more tight this year. I think Montana State are still the top, and Idaho's there, and Davis is there, but I think the bottom teams are better, so they're not. It's not quite as big of a gap this year. So I think this game should be fairly close. Idaho, coming off a bye too, should be rested. Part of it depends on 2 of their 3 running backs didn't play last week or the week before at Montana, and I guess it kind of depends on whether they'll be back this week. We haven't heard whether they are or they aren't. And a lot of times you don't hear that until 5 minutes before game time. So I think Idaho has. I don't know if their offense is explosive enough to blow out Northern Colorado, but I think they're good enough, and especially at home and rested, to beat Northern Colorado. But it should be a fairly close game, I think.
Yep, it's going to be. I think it'll be a close game too at the Kibbe Dome. Northern Colorado still, trying to find, like you said, bottom of the pack last year, trying to find more momentum wins this year. I think this certainly would be a big one for their program if they're able to win Saturday. But we'll see. The Idaho defense is pretty stingy. And let's jump to our pick segment now. John's still in the lead here, but it's getting a little tight. Fritz is right behind you, John. After Montana State's win last week, so far you are 49 for 53, so still doing a great job. Let's hear your picks.
Yeah, I completely forgot about Sacramento State and Weber when I was putting these down. So I said all home teams, and then that threw a wrench in it. So we're going to go Montana over Cal Poly, Montana State over Idaho State, Idaho over UNC, Davis over NAU, and then I'm going to pick Sacramento State as my lone road warrior team this week.
Awesome, John. Fritz, you're at 48 out of 53. Let's hear your picks, and let's see if you're going to take your Bengals this week.
They were my Bengals after that game Saturday, briefly. But no, I'll stick with the Bobcats over Idaho State. I'll take the Griz and their homecoming game over Cal Poly. I'll take Idaho over UNC. I think Idaho can't afford a loss. They really need to start stacking up some conference wins. I'm going to pick the one road team to win. It's going to be NAU. I'll pick them over UC Davis. Bounce back game for them, and I just think Rex Connors is that good. And then I will take Weber State to beat Sac State at home.
Got it, Fritz. Let's go to Mark. Mark, 45 out of 53. You were perfect this week, and you even called a close game with the Bengals and the Griz. So you really, really did well. The floor is yours.
Do I get an extra point for that one?
It's just a virtual high five, I guess, as we say.
Oh, man. All right. Well,
I wish.
Mine are pretty boring. I got all the home teams. I have Montana over Cal Poly, Montana State over Fritz's Idaho State Bengals, Vandals over Northern Colorado, UC Davis over John's Northern Arizona Lumberjacks, and I'm going to take Weber at home over future FBS power Sacramento State.
True powerhouse of the FBS. Mike, you and I both went perfect last week as well. We're still tied neck and neck at the bottom, so we're making our way up slowly. You are at 43 out of 53 picks. Let's hear what you got.
Yeah, I think John and I are pretty aligned in our thoughts this week. Mostly the home teams: Montana State over Idaho State, Montana over Cal Poly, Idaho over Northern Colorado, UC Davis over Northern Arizona, and then future NIL powerhouse, maybe not in terms of field play, but yeah, Sacramento State over Weber State on the road.
Perfect. Thank you, Mike. And I will go now. This week, I'm going to go with Montana at home over Cal Poly. I'm excited to watch that one, though. I think it'll be a good game. Give me the Cats over the Bengals. I really want to take the Bears to try and maybe get a step on you guys up in the lead. But like you were saying, I think Idaho needs to win this game and start stacking some conference wins. So I will take them since they're playing in the Kibbe Dome. Penix shaping up just to be the best offensive player in the Big Sky. Maybe Gilman as well. Both of them are having great seasons. But right now, I think Pinnock, is playing at a very high level. So I'm going to take the Aggies over the Lumberjacks. And finally, I'm going to take Sac State to defeat Weber State on the road. That should do it for today's episode. I just want to thank my panel for joining me again. They do a great job. And thank you guys for all your research. And if you have any questions you'd like to drop in the comments, feel free. We'd love to discuss any of those. Please like, subscribe, and share the video with friends, family, or whoever. But that'll be this episode on Big Sky Now, and we will check you next week.
M&C Tire in Kalispell has been locally owned since 1979. From urban avenues to untamed trails, M&C Tire will help you conquer any terrain. Unleash the power within your ride. Stop into M&C Tire at 1271 North Meridian Road in Kalispell or mnctire.com. M&C Tire, wherever you go, we've got you covered.